Welcome, everyone, to the latest installment of the podcast series of the North American Spine Society, where we highlight articles from the SpineLine publication. My name is Alex Michael, and I'll have the pleasure of moderating this latest edition. I'm a neurosurgeon with Mercy Clinic in St. Louis, Missouri, and I also have the honor of chairing our Public Affairs Committee for the North American Spine Society. Today, I have with me Dr. Richard Skolasky to discuss his paper entitled Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Setting the Table for Success at NASS and Establishing a Societal Benchmark. Dr. Skolasky is from the Department of Orthopedic Surgery and Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. He's also the NASS Diversity Task Force Chair. Dr. Skolasky, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to discuss both the SpineLine article but also the important work that the Diversity Task Force has been doing these past year or so. And please call me Richard. There's no need to be formal.
Well, Richard, NASS has had a long valued diversity in its past. And this is embodied by the fact that NASS is a multidisciplinary organization that has tried to bring together a multitude of spine specialists from numerous different fields. So could you start by giving us a background on the formation of the Diversity Task Force? Were there any significant events or findings that led to its formation?
Certainly, that's a great way to start. So you're right. NASS has been interested in and valued diversity throughout its history. For the past several years, the executive committee, who are the senior leadership of the society, have been discussing the importance not only of being a diverse professional society from the standpoint of disciplines or professions, but also establishing NASS as a diverse and equitable and inclusive member society. These conversations coalesced under the leadership of Dr. William Sullivan, and it was then that meetings with the executive committee discussed and then established a diversity task force that would examine the current state of the organization and then make recommendations for NASS to become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. I think this work is in parallel to broader societal reflections on how we can support individuals from diverse backgrounds and experiences. And NASS, as a member organization and a volunteer-led organization, wanted to make sure that we provided opportunities for all of our members to become involved, so that the volunteer base leadership is representative of the diversity within the various professions that comprise NASS membership. While we have highlighted, I think more broadly, has highlighted the underrepresentation of women, people of color, and those who identify as members of the LGBTQ community across professions, but particularly in surgical fields, that has been well documented.
Well, to put things into better perspective, over medical fields as a whole, did you have any data that influenced your decision-making on how women and minorities were represented in leadership positions, both in medical fields as a whole and then these surgical specialties?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there. I think it kind of starts when you look at the ratio of men to women in undergraduate education, then to medical school. Or, in my case, I went the route of graduate school. I'm a health services researcher, not a clinician. But there we see either parity between male and female students, or a growth in the number of women who are attending college, attending medical school. And the Association of American Medical Colleges had conducted a survey in 2019 and reported that it was the first year that women actually outnumbered men in medical schools. They comprised 50.5% of medical students in that survey. And while the proportion of women in medical schools has grown consistently, the representation of women in academic orthopedic leadership positions is lacking, and that's probably representative of leadership positions more broadly in academic medicine. Of a survey of 161 academic orthopedic residency programs, women comprised 3% of department chairs, 8% of department vice chairs, 11% of program directors, and 27% of assistant program directors. So I think the highlight there is that women are becoming more involved in taking more leadership responsibilities, but it's not. It's sort of slowly percolating, and it's not.
Yeah, that's what I took out of this piece too, because at 50%, knowing that it's been a long-standing history of underrepresentation of particularly women and LGBTQ, now in 2019 we're actually, back to equal status. But then it's the leadership components and it, having a hierarching overhead view of the field as a whole. That's absolutely what I got of it. And I think that's what most of the Diversity Task Force, and correct me if I'm wrong, has tried to accomplish on how we can change that perception so they do have a clear path to leadership.
Exactly. And, I think, pardon me, as a member organization, as a professional organization, NASS NASS offers a number of opportunities for professional development, for networking, through volunteer service and through leadership, for individuals to establish, grow, and continue a national and international reputation within their field. And NASS wanted to make sure that we were supporting and providing opportunities for all of our members, particularly those from these underrepresented groups. All of this conversation and work that had been going on at NASS, I think really, our focus was sharpened when we look back on the challenges that our colleagues, patients, family, and friends in communities of color, particularly in the Black community, face on a daily basis. So it was really, the impetus here was to focus on understanding where NASS was in terms of the composition of our membership, what their experiences with the organization were, and how we could support individuals to become more involved with the society through volunteer opportunities and help them to grow into future leaders, both within the society, which benefits NASS, but also at their home institutions.
So as a societal level, how exactly was NASS, the Diversity Task Force, created? And did you learn about the NASS community in the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so in addition to being the chair of the Diversity Task Force, I've had the pleasure and the honor of being first a member and now the chair of the governance committee. And so I've been sort of deeply or well versed in the structure and the function of NASS as an organization. And so it made sense, given the nature of the task force's work, that it would live sort of under the responsibility of the governance committee. And sort of the first steps that we as a committee took was to to make very clear that our mission was not only the standard governance related matters of the society, but to pursue diversity within the organization and its leadership. And so the task force was created through conversation with the executive committee and with the board of directors. And then our staff liaison, Mary Schutte, and I met with representatives from a number of other professional medical societies to understand their impetus for undertaking diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, hear from them what their experience had been, what challenges and what facilitators they faced, and then to gather any suggestions they could provide that might improve our efforts. And so with that information and in conversations with the executive committee and the board, we on the task force were charged with developing recommendations for NASS to fulfill its mission to become a diverse, equitable, and inclusive professional society, really focusing on the support of our members, volunteers, and leaders, particularly those from diverse communities, experiences, and backgrounds. And, this was and is and continues to be sort of a very long-term initiative of the society, realizing that just this snapshot of work that we have done to date is the first step. And so our first step really was just, well, what do we know about our members? We have more than 8,000 members. We do maintain membership data, but it's very limited. We basically knew that the age of our members, what their professional roles were, and nearly 3/4 of the members are surgeons. And then we didn't know anything about member composition on such important characteristics such as race and ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity. We had never collected those. And so that was sort of our first challenge, was to think of ways that we could collect them in a meaningful way and then use them to establish benchmarks for the society and to track the progress of this initiative.
Yeah, I think that it's so important to know the members and know our target and tailor our really tailor all of our messages to those particular groups. And so along that lines, I saw to acquire that data, you guys had hired some external consultants, and one of which was Mind Your Business, or MYB. And they were able to set some project goals, and that would help provide the executive committee with a more comprehensive diversity, equity, inclusion assessment of the membership. And they also wanted to identify areas of concern or risk and uncover some gaps for opportunity. So along with that task force, you guys had interviewed 12 individual members, and this seemed to play a significant portion of the paper to actually talk to individuals and get their perception. And they were targeted because they represented a broad range of gender, professional role, length of membership in NASS. So I thought that was a very useful piece of information just for any organization, especially for ours to have. So can you tell us a little bit about what in particular was enlightening and what you guys had learned from these interviews?
Yeah. So I mean, just kind of to take one step back, if you'll allow me.
Of course.
The members of the task force are incredible. I constantly was amazed at their responsiveness, the conversations, discussions that we had on some very challenging issues, in challenging in that we don't usually talk about how to make an organization diverse. We don't usually share with people other than maybe our very close friends experiences of discrimination or about things in our personal history. So I will say that we had wonderful conversations, discussions around this issue. And the one thing that we all realized early on, and that Mary and I had learned from our discussions with other professional medical societies, is that doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work well takes special training. And it takes, a great deal of experience. And so while the members of the task force could give important insights and could sort of digest, infer, and make recommendations based on their understanding of the data, we really did need to bring in some expert consultants to help us with this work. And so the task force was charged with going to the literature and developing a survey that we could send out to select members, as you had mentioned. And given what we knew of members based on our member data, we oversampled women because we wanted to know their experience. And we oversampled individuals who were earlier in their career or who were members of the membership feedback committee. And the membership feedback committee is a group of members who want to be on a committee. They've expressed an interest, and they just haven't been placed on a committee yet. And so it's a group of engaged people, engaged members. And then concurrently to sending out that survey to those members, Mind Your Business interviewed 12 individuals that we had selected again from those categories, and also former and current board members, so they could get a more in-depth understanding behind the numbers that we were going to end up seeing as a result of our quantitative survey. And Mind Your Business, because they had done this work with other organizations, was very helpful because they could help sort of benchmark what we were finding within NASS to what other organizations have found. And so I think the first big takeaway was that respondents were incredibly satisfied with NASS membership, and they rated the membership as very or extremely valuable. And that sort of was higher among board members, but it was even among early career members. 80% of those respondents viewed their NASS membership as incredibly valuable. Nearly 8 out of 10 member respondents felt connected to the vision and mission of NASS. And again, that was, I think, higher than some of the society benchmarks that Mind Your Business had shared with us. But what we did see is that there were variances in the perceived value and connection to NASS, and that when we looked at satisfaction with membership, women only about a little over a third rated that they were very or extremely satisfied with their membership. Early career members rated a bit higher. 6 and 10 were very or extremely satisfied with their membership. And women, about a third of women endorsed the sort of top box in terms of the value of their NASS membership. And so we felt, this was an opportunity that I think in our conversations we anticipated, but now here we had firm data from our survey, and that was backed up by the qualitative interviews that Mind Your Business had conducted with members.
So really, you guys did find a clear opportunity for improvement, particularly in the perception and satisfaction that we're seeing among women, and a clear path to leadership position as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you're exactly right. I mean, these provided us with a very clear opportunity to begin advising the board and the executive committee on how to take action. I think it was satisfying that overall these measures of satisfaction, value, and connection were comparable to other national academic and professional societies. But we started this work, and the board endorses supporting all members, and we want all members to have the best possible experience in NASS. That has allowed us to explore ways that NASS can work to enhance the experience of women within the society, those who are early in their careers, and some of the ideas that we are investigating and beginning to coalesce around are the developing of mentoring programs, and also through some of the work that the governance committee is doing, making recommendations, the dedication of committee seats specifically for early career members, so that they become engaged in a meaningful way with the society, and the committees and leadership benefits from their perspective as someone who is starting their career, starting their practice, starting their research lab or group, and maybe brings some additional insight that would otherwise not be there.
And you may have already touched on this, but what I had saw was there was only 43% of those respondents agreed that the process to get to leadership was fair, which was a pretty wide divergence in experience between the board, people already on the board, and women and members of the membership feedback committee. And so the process of just applying to some of these committees seemed a bit unclear.
Yeah.
I wanted to make the process a little bit more, a little less mysterious. So it seems like that was a big area that you guys had covered for improvement and just finding more transparency and path to leadership.
It was. And I think, I've always viewed NASS as a meritocracy. The harder you work, the more responsibility you get, right, and more opportunities you have. But we wanted to make sure that everyone knew how to start that journey, how to be able to demonstrate their work ethic, the skills, the knowledge, the experiences that they can bring to the society. And what we found, as you've stated, was there was a wide divergence on knowing that path to volunteerism and to leadership. And I think those are challenges that we are working with the membership committee to make the process of applying and serving on a committee clear. We're working through with the board and as the governance committee to see about broadening opportunities, as I had mentioned, particularly for early career members to become involved in committee work. And then, we're looking for ways that we can bring people together who have similar experiences to encourage networking, and then expose those groups to the broader society, the leadership, and the volunteer base. Because I think that as a member society, that networking component and that being known and being able to share the gifts and skills that you have is very critical. And so, those all of the recommendations that we as a task force have made to the board and to NASS have been about improving the pathways to service and the transparency of the process to identify, select, and promote members within the organization.
Well, the last piece I wanted to touch on is dealing with communication. You note that communication between a professional society and its membership must be welcoming, timely, and relevant to be viewed as part of a positive member experience. So, in your findings, was there any perceived differences in the effectiveness of communication between the groups that you had looked at?
Yeah, I mean, I think again here, we did ask about respondents' sense of the tone of communications from NASS. Was it welcoming? Did they feel the communication was written for a diverse audience, and was it easy to understand? And when we look at the respondents as a group, I mean, they answered yes, 80% or more of the respondents that mass communications were welcoming, written for a diverse audience, and easy to understand. But as we had seen with the value, satisfaction, and connection to the mission, there was a divergence of variance here that women were less likely to see the communications as relevant or written for a diverse audience. And I think that is a challenge that that we have to face, and how do we do that? And I think that's going to be continued work. The task force is sunsetting, but we've established within NASS a permanent committee that will focus on the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that we've done to date, the recommendations that we've made, and will continue this work. And so that communications piece will be something that is on their radar. And I will say, I mean, this podcast and coming on here and talking about what NASS has done and what we need to do and what we found, I think is a part of that communication. When we talked earlier about the pathway leadership not being clear, that's sort of a governance issue, and we want to make these things clear, and these things are on our website, but maybe not as easy to digest. And so we're looking at ways that we can use technology through podcasts or brief webinars to demystify maybe the structure and the function of NASS, so that people can see how they can get involved and how they can reap those benefits that come with volunteering for a diverse organization.
Well, I think that's exactly why we selected this piece for inclusion in the podcast series, because it really does affect everyone. It's not just LGBTQ. It's not just minorities. It's not just women. We all have a role in creating a better environment for our patients and environment for us as practitioners and researchers. And the better we can understand each other and understand our patients, the better we can take care of society as a whole. And I think that's the real goal of NASS. So I just wanted to finish up highlighting the long-term plan that the task force had devised based on all the data you guys have collected. And now the task force established a roadmap for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Richard, can you go over exactly what that would include, and we can finish with that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So yeah, I mean, we proposed a roadmap to NASS, and the first piece of that is, as we had learned when we started these efforts, was that we need to collect more information on our members about their background experience, so that we can have a benchmark of what the membership looks like, and then see over time as these initiatives progress, that is reflective, or see how reflective that is in the volunteer base and in the leadership. The other recommendation that we had made was establishing recruitment and retention programs for members from underrepresented communities, doing more outreach, realizing that we're a multidisciplinary organization of people invested and involved in spine care, spine research, spine-related education. But we're sort of a small group within a much larger group of people who actually do that work. And how can NASS reach out to the broader fields that are involved in patient care, research, education, to make NASS membership reflective of that broader community. And I think so that's a very important goal of the organization. How can we grow in a meaningful way to be representative? And then, as our findings have established, there are things that we can do to create a more equitable and inclusive environment. That's through highlighting the value, understanding people's different experiences within the organization, providing opportunities for volunteerism and pathways to leadership. And I think all of that and it has now been passed on, as I had said, from the task force, which is always a temporary body to get this work started, to a permanent committee that will be working very closely with the governance committee and with the board to address these key points.
Well, Dr. Skolasky, thank you once again for sharing your paper, your thoughts, your insights, and really thank you for all you've done to help NASS set the standard really for diversity, equity, inclusion in professional societies. So I think that's going to conclude today's podcast, again, brought to you by the North American Spine Society. Thank you very much.